Henry, do you have a document as well, or should I focus on Jawad and Joshua's documents?
Let's focus on Jawad and Joshua's documents.
Okay.
And to
You're
be
gonna
clear,
get a lot more hands-on training than you thought, because I thought it was gonna be, I thought I was gonna put you guys into like breakout rooms and have you guys talk to each other. But, and who does this little sweet little girl have any documents to automate as well?
Behavioral documents? Yeah, I'm sure she does. She wants to participate too. So we're actually using, I received just a general independent contractor agreement from my program director.
Okay, perfect.
From Don Young. So I'm just using that. Excellent.
Okay, awesome. And Joshua, are you using something as well, or any particular document that you're automating?
I'm afraid I haven't done my homework. I don't have a document right for that, but I'm just trying to sort of get my mind wrapped around the whole system.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Jawad, you're on the spot here. So what we'll do is I have some slides, so I'll just share them, even though I'm probably just going to tell you all of them myself anyway.
Dawn,
yes.
So Dawn has sent Jawad the independent contractor agreement that we worked on last time.
Oh, this is the same one that we worked on last time. Okay, perfect.
And well, so then, Jawad, I know that you knew about Documate and you were wanting to adopt it into your practice like for a couple months now. So how far along that path are you?
So I put together a program. It's my website is almost complete. What I decided to do was, instead of utilizing an automated system just yet, build up the client base a little bit, and then utilize a automated system, because right now I have the time to do this stuff. So I'm just trying to save a little bit of money on my own, because everything that's going on right now is pretty much just my own money that I'm spending. And so I know I signed up for the program that you guys had for the incubator program. And I logged into it, I checked it out. I didn't really get it all. So I think this is why I'm here. I think this is going to help me understand it more.
Okay, perfect.
But I also think that it was, there were a lot of limitations placed on that account. I think it's because it's a free account. So that's why I thought maybe it's not something that I want to do just yet. And instead what I did was I use WordPress for my website, and I've been automating a lot of stuff through WordPress on my website. So I have forms that I've set up or that I'm working on, and they're automatically going to feed into a PDF file for me eventually. But right now, all they're doing is they're collecting the information and then automatically emailing them to me from the client, or saving them onto my server. And then I can collect that information, make a call to the client. So basically it's a Rocket Lawyer, a version of Rocket Lawyer, but the difference is the client is also getting legal advice while they're doing that. So they're not just, finding a form like an independent contractor agreement, and it may not be what they need. It may be something different. So, part of that is me qualifying that independent contractor, and then also, providing them with any information that they need that's specific for them, for that particular template or document, for me to add in there. So if they want to do, if they want to have a specific term agreed upon, you can't do that with Rocket Lawyer or one of the other ones. With this, it's all, specific. And then part of that is because they're utilizing us, they're paying a monthly fee for unlimited consultations, legal consultations, and unlimited contract reviews. There's no limitation on that whatsoever. They just go on the website, pick a time, and they get a phone call. Or we could do it via Zoom. So part of that is because they're going to use this service for the contract and it's so customized for their need, we provide them with a guarantee of pre-litigation service if something goes wrong, as long as they continue to be a member. So if you're the independent contractor, you didn't perform something, or you didn't, and you're, talking about suing, or something doesn't get done, prior to litigation, there might be a demand letter that needs to be sent. There might be just some simple negotiations, or when people get upset at each other, they don't communicate right. And so that's where the lawyers come in and understand the process, and it may take one phone call to resolve it. So that's where we provide that service for that particular document. And it's going to be at no additional cost, because as long as they continue to be a member of the website.
Awesome. And I love what you're talking about in terms of kind of like bundling these things together, which is something we talked about a little bit last time, in terms of taking the documents, but also combining it with some potential additional services. And sometimes people may not need it at all, and sometimes they may need it. But it provides a really attractive, like, new business model that you can offer to your clients that makes them comfortable and makes them more likely to use you. So that's awesome.
Dorna, can I ask a follow-up question on that? So, Jawad, I think, please correct me, Dorna, that what we were trying to do was offer the incubator account on DocuMate for free, so that you guys as incubator lawyers could get in there and could start building some things and using the platform, so that you can see that the value that you can derive from paying for the higher monthly expense, and do that at a very low risk level to you in your practice. And here's my question, Dorna. If someone like Jawad built out things through the dashboard inside of our incubator AWS instance, do you all on the back end have the ability to, if he becomes a paying client, sort of grab all that that's been built and put it over into his new paid instance?
Yes, we do. And then also another thing I was actually curious about is what specifically you saw as limitations, because really the main limitation that there is in your incubator account is data storage. And that's because you're all on the same server. And so what we usually do is we set every client up on their own server. So that's why we don't allow for data storage when you're all on the same server, except for kind of like some limited data storage. So
I think what I found as a limitation for me, and maybe I wasn't looking at it right, was I wanted to be able to create the form and integrate it into my website.
Oh, you wanted to embed it?
Embed it, exactly. I wanted to embed it into my website so that it looks like it's still on my site. And I don't think I saw that on that version.
So
that was one of the limitations, was it wasn't allowing me to do that.
That's not an intentional limitation. So it's possible that we just haven't set that up for your account. So let me just make a note of that. Okay. I will enable that right after our call. Enable embed.
Yeah, I think the things that were disabled were the paywall, which I don't think I'm going to use a paywall, but I just wanted to see how it works.
And that's similar with paywall. Paywall has to be one for the entire account. So unless you all wanted to send all your funds over to Anne-Marie, then.
So yeah, with the forms, I'm not planning to do that. What I'm looking to do is for them to fill out the information and then have it print a preliminary form, preliminary document, which I can then review with the client over the phone. And if there are any changes that need to be made, I can go back and make the changes to the template for that particular one. But I can have a general template set up. And then the branding was the other thing. And I think that's part of the integration into the website, the embedding.
So I can give you some tips to get around that as well. So I'll enable embedding right after our call today. And you can technically add some CSS. Technically, our branding is meant for the higher tiers, but I can help you add some CSS that will remove the logo. It won't allow you to add your own logo, but if you're just going to embed it on your own site, it probably doesn't matter because you have
Yeah,
the logo
it doesn't matter.
on your own site. So we can do that to help you move that over as well.
When the client hits submit, does it take them to the Documate website, or can I route them back into a thank you page on my website?
I think if you're just gonna embed it, it'll remain on your site, because what happens with an embed is it's basically like a little frame inside of your own main website.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you were on your own domain, you could create all kinds of, like, you could set up the domain to be a custom domain so it doesn't say Document in the domain name, and then you wouldn't necessarily need to do an embed at all.
Yeah.
But the goal is really to provide you a lot with this free account too, so that you can play around as much as you want and actually use it within your practice. And then only if you decide you want more branding and, paywall tools, then you would.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need a lot of storage space and, all the emails right now, because I don't have the clientele right now.
Yeah.
But my assumption is if I'm requiring that, it's because it's whatever I'm doing is working. So I'm willing to pay the $165 a month for that, or whatever the higher amount is.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. Well, I'll help you with some of those. If there are any other specific limitations that you saw, let me know, and I can probably kind of let you know things that you can do to work around them.
Okay.
All right. So let's get started, I guess, then. And Wook-san, welcome. I hope I'm saying your name correctly as well. But welcome to the call. And if you have a particular document that you're looking to automate, let us know. Otherwise, I'll sort of, do you have a specific document that you brought to automate, or are you kind of more observing? And I think you might be on mute, although it doesn't look like you're on mute, but I can't hear you. Maybe just type it into the chat if you.
Yeah, we're not hearing you, Wook-san. You can hear us though, so that's good.
Yeah, I can hear you.
There, now we can hear you.
Okay, so I joined this seminar a couple of times before, but I don't have a portal per se, or related to plug my documents or portal. So I'm still just here just as an observer, so don't mind me.
Okay, perfect.
Wook-san,
well,
have you signed up for an account? Have you requested an account from Dorna?
Yes, I have an account and I know how to document, but I don't have the portal or app to plug that document in. So that's where I am. I'm still looking for some developer or someone to help me with that.
What I would recommend if you're looking, well, first of all, I think, you can accomplish a lot without having a front end website. But, and I believe Jawad said he was using WordPress. Another great tool that I really like is Webflow. It's sort of like a WordPress alternative, but it's pretty no code. And so you can do quite a bit. You sort of have to learn the system a little bit, but you can do quite a bit without using any code. So just some thoughts as you're thinking about building a front end website in the future as well.
It's Webflow?
Webflow, yeah, I'll just type that into, actually we have I did a blog post on this. I'll just post it for you guys in the,
and also, just in case anyone wants to use the independent contractor agreement from last time, I posted it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'll just send, I'll pull up the independent contractor agreement from there as well, so we can all work on that. And then I just sent over a link in case you're looking for front end websites. We did a blog post on this, on sort of some ideas of tools you can use that are pretty easy to set up, especially for lawyers who are trying to set up some kind of membership site or, collect payments online. All right, perfect. Well, you guys probably all can see my screen here. And so what we'll do is, I guess we'll just go through the independent contractor agreement. Let me pull that up as well. And I want this to hopefully be kind of participatory. And so hopefully you all have your Document accounts open as well. Is that right? So you'll have, okay, perfect. And then if you do have has everyone loaded the Word add-in as well? or if not, we'll get to that in a second once we're in our document phase. But let's start with this first slide. So just kind of wanted to go over the types of documents that are worth and best for automation. Things that are rule or template based. So you probably don't want to, I mean, you can automate a motion, but you're probably not going to be able to automate most parts of a motion, something that's more complex, that's going to require you to go do independent legal research every single time. What you're going to want to automate are the types of documents that where you have templates for them, like this independent contractor agreement with blanks, with footnotes that tell you what to insert and not to insert, with clauses that have to change depending on what you want to include for the client. So rule or template based. Second kind of rule of thumb here is, you want it to be worth it. So if it's a very basic document where you're just replacing someone's name twice in the document and that's it, that's probably not going to bring you that much value, because it probably will take just as much time to put that person's name in there twice every single time you generate the document as it will to automate the whole document and then insert that person's name into once. So you want something that's a little bit more complex, it's a little bit more robust, that has logic and rules to it that makes it worth it for you to automate. Third rule is volume based. So this also sort of goes along with the is it worth it, because if you're going to spend time to automate your document and you're only generating this document type once every year, it's probably not a good use of your time, because you might as well just spend that time generating that document that one time. However, if it's a document that takes you 10 hours every single month or more, or you're spending an hour a day on it, then that's something that you're doing at volume, and that's definitely something you're going to want to automate, particularly if you have a packet of documents. So document can obviously automate one document, which we're going to work on today because we're just working on a basic use case. But when you have document packets, that's when you're going to really create a lot of value and save a lot of time. So for example, let's say you had a divorce packet or an estate planning packet or a set of employee documents. Those would all be good to automate, because there's information that you're going to put in once that's going to flow into all of the different documents that exist there. So I wanted to ask you guys, but I think I know the answer right now. Did you bring Word documents or PDF documents? It looks like we have one. I just saw your message in the chat. Are you sure you're logging in from incubator.documate.org? Because what happens is everyone gets set up. You have your kind of private subdomain, which in this case is incubator. And let me just write that in there. I'll just write it in for everyone. Incubator.documate.org. I believe you guys are incubator, not incubators. Yeah, perfect. So if you go there, you should see your account there if you had it before. And if you didn't, I will keep a close eye on. Just let me know if you don't see it there. All right, so try signing in from there. And then, so I think I know the answer in terms of whether you guys have Word or PDF documents. It sounds like we have one Word document that we're working with today. And we'll kind of go through some of the options there. And then bonus points if the document is client facing, because again, that's going to be, you're trying to find areas that you're going to find a lot of value and you're going to save a lot of time by using this. And so if it's internal, you're definitely going to build a lot of efficiency, save a lot of time. But bonus points if you can get your client to actually enter that data for you. I know some areas of law, this isn't possible and it's not as useful. You know, if you're dealing with something that's very legalese specific, you may not be able to create a workflow that your clients can enter data for. But if you have something that's more consumer facing, like housing or estate planning or family law, it's likely that there's a ton of information, at least upfront, that you can generate for yourself. So I see, Wuksan, that you're saying that your account isn't there. I'm just gonna send you, if you don't have one already, register.
I mean, I had it. I worked on a document there, so I don't know what happened.
I wonder if we had set you up under a different account, because I want to say we actually met separately from the incubator program. Is that right? It might be that you're on a different account.
So first I went on to the just regular document.org and it says .exist. So I went on to the incubator.document.org. It said .exist either. So.
What's your email address?
LPHIL@WHONGLAW.com.
WHONG is part of it, right? Let me just see.
Yeah. Phil@WHONGLAW.com.
Oh, I see you. Okay, you're under a different account, so I'll put the link in there for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're here. I'm sorry for the confusion. I think I think maybe I had set you up on that account before the incubator account existed.
Oh, I see. Yes.
So I'll just click on that link and you should be able to sign in from there. And that's your private subdomain there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so going back to these questions. So yeah, bonus points if it's client facing. So this type of document that we're working with today, the independent contractor agreement, it definitely fits, it's rule and template based. Probably worth it because there's a lot of little sections in the footnotes that are conditional that we're going to save a lot of time if we automate instead of having to look through the document and delete and add things in every single time, delete and add clauses in. Possible that we're doing it at volume because we're maybe dealing with clients who need these on a consistent basis. So Word document, and we can also make it client facing. What I often love that a lot of firms are starting to do is if you have a document that's really repetitive and that you're providing to your clients often, but sometimes it could lead to needing additional advice up front, you can put rules into your into your workflow to reroute people to you if the online method isn't right for them. So for example, let's say you have this independent contractor agreement and it's only for Texas employees. If someone says they're not in Texas, you can either obviously create a different document for them, or you can reroute them and say, sorry, our system is only for Texas employees. Let's have you join, call our office so that we can help you out independently. So you can insert all those types of rules in there as well. And that's how you can make something like this client facing. So let's get started. So I want you guys to I want this to be really interactive, and I want you guys to really be building during this time. So get into your accounts and create a new workflow and name it whatever you want. Maybe you want to call it independent contractor agreement. I know that's the only document we have. So, but if you have something else you want to call it, that works too. And then we are going to start in the questions tab. So just tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast for anyone, but you should be seeing now on your screen 2 different tabs. The output documents tab on the right-hand side and the questions tab on the left-hand side. So just raise your hand if you don't see that. Otherwise, I will keep going. So we're gonna kind of move. We know what everyone's area of law is, and we know everyone's working on this Word document. So the first question I want you to ask is, looking at this document, the independent contractor agreement, if you were going to create a workflow for this, and when I talk about a workflow, what I mean is a set of questions that generates a set of documents. So if you were going to create a workflow for this, are there any questions, and this is the third question on the screen here, are there any questions that are not contained in the document? So what I mean by that is we obviously have several different sections inside of the document that we are definitely going to ask. We're going to ask, what's the company's name? We're going to ask, when is this document entered into? Because we're seeing all these blanks in our document. So those are definitely questions we want to ask. But are there any gateway questions that we want to ask before we get to the bulk and substance of this document? And, Jawad, I know you mentioned earlier that you were sort of looking to screen people and route people down the right paths. when you make these client facing, and maybe you're already sort of doing that with your questionnaires. So actually the questionnaires that you have right now may be what you want to use to flow them into the documents. But what you might want to think about is those questions. So for example, and that's what I want you to start entering into the system. So as your questions, you might want to ask something like, what's the jurisdiction? Or what are some other questions that you might want to ask that may screen people either into or out of this workflow? I mean, one that you could potentially ask is just, is this an independent contractor? Depending on how much you want to guide your user as well. So why don't you guys just go ahead and add those questions and just let me know when you're ready and you're done. And I'm now going to have you move on to, okay, so part one, we're gonna do this in 3 steps.
Dorna, quick question.
Yes.
I see under add questions, there are options for Clio Contact and Clio Matter. Are those specifically for our Clio, or are they for Anne Marie's Clio?
That is a good question. I'm actually not sure of the answer to that, because I have to ask our developers whether you can add more than one Clio
the only
account.
reason I asked that was because you said Stripe was for just, it would be for Anne Marie. So I figured I might as well ask those questions too.
Let me just check with our team.
I mean, you don't have
It's
to
a great
answer
question,
right
but
now.
I don't even
Just
know the
figured
answer
I'd
to.
ask
So,
sometimes. You can email us later if you want.
okay, perfect. I may get an answer during our session. If not, I will email you after. But that's a great question. So yeah, so you're looking at the different questions there, and that's actually a great point. So I don't know if everyone was here last time, but one of the things that we covered was, what are the different types of questions that you can add? So obviously one is Clio, and Clio would pull data that you have in your Clio system into the document system, so that you don't need to have unnecessary duplicative information. But there are a variety of other types of questions you might ask. So text, obviously, just enters text. If you guys have used SurveyMonkey or Typeform or something like any kind of form tool like that, then these types of questions that you're seeing on your screen may be familiar to you as well. So multiple choice, which is a single select question, is a really popular one. You might want to use that for different clauses. So for example, I know, you were saying earlier that you may have different clauses that you're generating for different clients, and you want them to be able to choose those. You could put those into a multiple choice question, or you could put those into a multi-select checkbox question. So you can either allow them to choose just one, or allow them to choose 5, 10. And then based on those, just determine what clauses actually go into the document. So think about those as you're setting up your questions. And I'm seeing that some people are also just have joined. So welcome to the session. And if you guys have your documents and you have a particular document that you're working on, just drop the name of the document or the area of law of the document in the chat, just so that we can make sure that we cover your area as well. Otherwise, we're just working off of the independent contractor agreement that Jawad brought and that we actually worked on last session as well. So what we've done so far is we've brainstormed some of our gateway questions. So hopefully you guys have entered these gateway questions into your system using the question blocks. And now we are ready to start adding our initial fields. And keep in mind that any one of these questions can have logic attached to them. So we did go over last session about how you add logic to questions. So for example, let's say you have a workflow that is going to generate documents for employees, and they could be either exempt employees or they could be non-exempt employees. That might be a question you ask up front, and that could be your gateway question, for example. And based on the answers given to those gateway questions, you may have different questions that are then asked subsequent to those questions. Those are going to be your gateway questions. Hopefully you've all inserted them into your system now. And now what we want to do is start setting up some of our initial fields. So looking at the document, we're looking at the independent contractor agreement, and Anne-Marie just put it into the chat again as well for those of you who just joined. So just take a look at that. If you do have, I'm going to call you guys out, the newcomers, so Al and Cara. If you do have a document that you came here with, if you wouldn't mind just dropping the name of it, you don't have to actually drop your document if you don't want to, into the chat, then I'll just be able to make sure that we're covering everyone's needs here as well. And if you didn't bring a document, that's fine too. Just we'll just continue working from the independent contractor agreement. All right, so the next thing I want you to do is start setting up these fields. And just raise your hand if I'm going too slow or if you're still setting up your gateway questions. But let's set up some of our initial fields. And for this particular document, if you all have it open, the independent contractor agreement, we can see very clearly what some of our, I mean, this part of the exercise is the easiest part. What do you have as blanks in your document? And what do you need to gather data about? So in this case, we have, and actually maybe it would be helpful if I just shared my whole screen here so that I can kind of flip back and forth between these. So just go ahead and add those questions in. And I'm going to share my screen differently in a second. All right, so you should be able to now see my whole screen now. And the reason I did that is because I wanted you guys to be able to see side by side some of the topics that we're going over, but alongside it, the document that is in the chat as well. So what are some of our initial fields? In this situation, we have all these blanks. So I'm gonna leave it up to you guys because I want you guys to really be able to have a lot of creative freedom in how you set up your workflow and how you set up the questions. So just go ahead and add these fields into if you're working with this document, go ahead and add these fields into your workflow questions. And you can set these up on the same page. You can set them up on different pages. These are all things that you're gonna make as decisions. And we talked about last time, for those of you who were here last time, thinking about the narrow scope of your audience, because you may have the very same document that you'll treat very differently for different types of customers. So for example, let's say you have an independent contractor agreement and you're actually dealing with a client who's a law firm. The way that you craft your questions is probably going to be completely different than if you're dealing with consumers or smaller businesses, because you have a very sophisticated customer who's going through this to enter the data. So if I was dealing with a law firm, I'd probably just put a bunch of blanks that say company, date, consultant, well, the company name, if you're creating, company name, again, very, very basic fields. Whereas if I'm creating this for someone who's a small business or for a consumer who's doing this, I'm going to probably want to create longer questions, and I'm going to want to give a lot more guidance to the end user. So far, does everyone have some of these basic fields inside of their document? Or does anyone need more time to add any more? All right, so we've started with some of our basic fields. Now let's think about, we're going to think about two different things. Fields that we are going to add as sort of multiple choice sections that determine what clauses are inserted into our document. That's number one. And then 2, lists of information that are going to be gathered. So for the multiple choice type questions, in this particular document, we can probably look to anything that has a footnote and determine whether or not we want to make that decision for the user, or whether we are going to just allow them to choose which one. So for example, you know, we have here, do we want to include expenses? There is this other section that we have here, footnote number 4, where we're actually sort of making a legal decision here, because we have a section that where we're requiring this consultant to comply with company policies. And this could potentially weigh in favor of this consultant being an employee. And so the question is, do we want to make the decision for our end user? Do we want to say, you know what, for this workflow, I'm just going to always take this out and I'm never going to allow the user to enter it? Or are we going to write this out as a question and allow the end user to determine how they want to move forward and whether they want to include this clause? So I'll give you guys a few minutes to just kind of take a look at this document and add some of these additional footnotes as questions. And if you have any questions on, we'll do the document in a second. So I'll show you how to connect it to the document in a second. But for now, we're just dealing with how the questions appear to either you, your staff, or the client who's filling this out. So I'll just give you guys a few minutes there. And just to add a little bit of visual aid here. You are currently adding your questions on this questions tab. And you may have added multiple choice or checkbox, or even drop down potentially questions to ask some of these. All right. Anyone still working on this or working on adding questions? Or does anyone have any questions on you know, the process, or any kind of unique situation that you're dealing with your document that you want to go over? And by the way, Cara and Al, I'm assuming that you guys have your account set up as well, but if you don't, just let me know so we can make sure that you guys all have accounts to be working and building from today. Oh, okay. Al, I actually just saw that you did sign up, and so I just gave you access as well. So if you refresh your screen, you'll be able to see the platform and start entering your questions in there as well. So just to kind of recap again, where we're at right now is this questions tab, and we're adding in our different questions. So far, we've added some gateway questions. Those are the questions that are going to lead people down different paths and determine whether or not the workflow is right for them, or determine what set of questions are going to be asked. Then we set up our initial fields. So in the example of this document, we may have asked things like, what's the company's name? What's the consultant's name? When was this entered into? These are super basic fields, but they're going to be your building blocks for much more complex documents. We're working with something very basic today, but there's really an infinite amount of complexity that you can add to your documents and document sets as you get used to all the different building blocks that we're working with. And then I'll actually add in here, one other thing we're doing is adding in multi-select questions to determine which clauses are going to be generated. And then the lists of information. So lists are one thing that we haven't gone over yet today. this is what I'm going to actually show you is, why don't I just show you one of the examples of a list, which is called a repeating item question. I actually have this example, and actually let me just add a new page so I can start from scratch. So one of the question types that we have is called a repeating item question. So if I add this repeating item question, it allows me to ask about anything that there could be 0 of, or there could be hundreds of. This is going to be really useful for you. I don't specifically think there are maybe certain areas that we can add this in our independent contractor agreement. So for example, what are the different services that you're going to be providing to the company? That could be something that could be a repeating item because you don't know if there's one or there's multiple. But really where this becomes more useful is with groups of people. So children is the example I often like to use here. So let me just give this page a title too. I'll give it the title children. So what you'll do first is start with the item name. And for the item name, I'm going to insert something like children. And as you can see, some of the other things I've used before are things like shareholders or executors or aliases. So anything that you don't know up front how many there are. So let's start with, oh, and it looks like I have children. Children's, let's just call it children's here. So children is my item name. That's what we're going to gather information about. The initial question, think of that like, let's say your client came into your office and you wanted to know about all their children's dates of birth, all their children's residence addresses. You wouldn't start by asking them what their third child's residence is. You'd start by asking them, do you have any children? So that's what this initial question is. So you'll ask something like, do you have any children? And then these repeating questions are the attributes. So I might start with child name. I'll give it a variable name, child name. I might do child date of birth, and then I'll give it the variable name, child DOB. Child gender, maybe. Child gender. Make this multiple choice. Female, male, other. So this is all the information that you want to gather about those. So think about whether you're working with the independent contractor agreement or whether you're working with your own personal document. Think about whether there are any specific sections that you want to add a list item or a repeating item for. And if you do, then go ahead and add that as a question type. I'll just give you guys a few minutes to think about that one and just think about what you have inside of your document, whether that might be the different services that exist, or potentially even if you had different companies that were going to be involved. And as you can see at the very bottom of this document, we have a lot of different sections that could have gone as multiple choice questions too, like, is it going to be fixed fee, hourly rate, or equity, or is there going to be equity compensation? So I'll just give you guys a few minutes to enter those. So just raise your hand if you're still working on those repeating item questions or adding any of those. All right, perfect. Well, then let's go ahead and move on to the next section. So at this point, what we've done is we've done pretty much most of the different questions that we have in our document. So part one, we're pretty much done as long as everything has been inserted. And let me know if you need more time, because I think, you know, if you're really going to get this whole document, you probably want to spend more than the few minutes that I'm giving you, but I don't want to bore you guys with waiting around. So you can also go ahead and, now that you know these steps, you can add these in after the session as well. Or just let me know if you want me to slow down. Type in the chat. All right, so what we've done so far is we've done part one. Set up our gateway questions, set up some fields, set up these multi-select questions that are going to help us determine which clauses exist or don't exist. And keep in mind that you can do all kinds of nested logic as well. So for example, if you have a section here that's based on logic, and then within that section you have more logic within it, you can nest all of that in. I'll show you in a second when we move to the document how that works. Now, the next part of the process is the document. So you can automate both Word documents and PDF documents in our system. So it doesn't matter if it's a Word document that's malleable like this that you can kind of enter and change, or whether it's a PDF document like a court form with fillable fields, that can also be automated in the system. Today we'll work just with the Word document since that's what we have here. But if you do have PDF documents, I can cover that with you guys either today or at a later session. Or if you guys just want to contact me, I can help you with that as well. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to go ahead and set up our document. And in order to set up your document, what you want to do is, for Word documents, load the Word add-in. And it doesn't matter if you're on Word Online or Word for PC or Word for Mac. This will work on all of those different versions. Just make sure that you have the Word add-in in. So if you don't have the Word add-in, can you just let me know so I can wait for you, or so that I can help you get it on? Joshua is saying he's receiving an error. Can you tell me what you're seeing?
Yeah, give me just 1 second. I'll read you the error out here.
Okay. And the way to get this is to go to your add-ins, go to the store, type in Documate, and it should allow you to add it in like that. Anyone else having an issue loading the add-in?
So I don't know if this is my version. I'm on the 2016 Windows version of Word, and I was able to find the document add-in, but when I actually click it, the panel opens on the right, and then it says add-in error. We can't load this add-in because we couldn't connect to the catalog, and I can't seem to get past that.
Do you mind making sure that you have any Microsoft Word updates in place?
Sure.
Dorna, last time wasn't there some kind of code that people had to type in to be able to access it? I remember having a little trouble also.
Yes, but it sounds to me that Joshua's not even there yet.
Yeah,
it sounds to me like he's not even at the page where you have the code.
I did generate the API code, so I have that ready to go. I haven't even gotten that far yet.
Oh, okay. Well, then you got the hardest step already done.
Yes, I remember that being like, this shouldn't be so difficult. Why is this being so difficult?
For those of you who are looking for your API key, you'll go here. Actually, let me just type it in. incubator.documate.org/manage API. So that's the link. For those of you who are looking for your add-in code, which Josh was already found, just go there and you'll either use the one, if there's already an API key there, you can use the API key that's there. If there isn't, just create a new one. And it doesn't matter what you name it. All you need to do is give it a name and click continue, and you'll see the key that you'll be able to use to log into the Word add-in. And I'll just also show you on the screen. You'll basically just go here. Actually, this looks like I'm not logged in, but
I'm not seeing any updates, just to follow up on that.
do you know if you're able to load other add-ins?
That's a really good question. Let me give that a try.
Donna, in the client name window, what do we put in?
Great question. So in the client name, you'll put incubator.
Okay.
Your client name is
And
always,
it's,
actually, sorry, for you, it's going to be A2J, Uksan, because I just forgot you're on a different one. So your client name is always going to be your subdomain name. So in this case, for most of you, it's going to be incubator, since you're incubator.documate.org. But for you, Uksan, it's going to be A2J, just like the beginning. So yeah, but you only need to, let me just text it to you here as well. Just that part is going to be your client name.
Yeah. And then sign in. And
It looks like I'm actually having trouble loading any add-ins, so I guess this is just a more general Word problem, it looks like.
No, I couldn't
That
log in. I
sounds
cannot
like
log in
it.
either.
You can't log in. Oh, because the add-in isn't? What is it saying? Is it saying I can't log you in?
Yeah, I have not. The add-in is already showing up, but when I click the document tagger, it's site name document.org, client name, I put A to J, and then the document.org is already there, and then I put the API key. And it said we couldn't log you in. Please check your login info or sign up for account.
I think it's a2j.document.org.
You
Maybe I
don't need
should
to
put
put
that.
in the document.org portion because it should already be there for you. Can you just
It's already
double
there,
check
so
your API key?
if I guess I just copied and paste what you sent me. Document.org. Yeah.
It looks like I'm going to need to talk to our IT guys. Based on Google, it seems like the error I'm getting is something to do with the permissions error. So I'll just follow along on your screen and then work with them to get that resolved another time.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Just let me know if I can help after the call. It's sometimes, I've seen sometimes where people can't load add-ins and it's usually related to needing to just update, but it sounds like you don't have any of those. So hopefully your IT team can find a solution there. So for those of you who are using the Word add-in.
I have one quick question. Well,
Mm-hmm.
So right on that second line in the Word document, and then in brackets, Delaware Company Corporation.
Uh-huh.
About that, so based on what state they select, is there an automated way to change that from A to N if it's Illinois or?
Good question. So you're getting a little bit more advanced than what we have in the Word add-in, but
okay,
we actually do have a way to do that. Let me, this actually isn't in the Word add-in, but you're getting fancy, so I'll show it to you now. We have, okay, so this is what you're gonna use. I'm gonna just paste this into the chat so you can copy and paste it. So whatever your variable name was, you can just copy and paste what I just inserted into the Word, into the chat, into the Zoom chat, directly into your document, but obviously replace where it says variable name with your own variable name. So if you called it state name, you'd call it state name there as well. Does that make sense? Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Great question. All right. Should I keep moving on, or is anyone still having any trouble with the Wuxun? Were you able to get into the Word add-in?
Nope.
No. That's strange. Would you want to just share your screen really quickly so I can see it?
How do I do that? Hold on.
Here, I can make him a well, hold on a second. View gallery. I can make him a co-presenter and then he can share his screen. All right, Dorna, you might need to stop sharing. Oh, there you go.
And we can also, I don't know if you want to just talk about this after the call, but since we're such few people, I thought we should probably have everyone actually able to vote.
Where does it?
There's a button that says, or usually at the bottom, there's a button that says share screen. And then a window will pop up.
Here, yeah, it shows them now.
A window will pop up and pick the one that has your document in the picture. Depending on how many monitors you have, it's sometimes hard to figure out which one to share.
It doesn't say you don't need to have multiple participants share simultaneously, or one participant can share at a time. So it's that, then why don't I have? Okay, oh, got it.
Okay, I see the problem. So what you've listed in the API key is not your API key. It's actually the link. So what you want to do is, let me put in the chat where you want to go. You're going to go here. I just added in the chat. And then that's going to allow you to enter something here. So you're going to put A to J here. And then the API key is not going to be a link. It's going to be a set of like a bunch of letters and numbers. That's what you're going to insert there. But you're going to find that on a2j.documate.org/.
Oh, I see. I have to go to the website before I find it.
Exactly. You have to go to that link to get that code. Okay, perfect. Well, I'm glad we took a look at that to clear that up, because I don't think otherwise I would have been able to tell you what was going wrong. All right. So, and let's do this kind of simultaneously so that Jawad can continue moving on as well while
I'm fine.
While you're, yeah, okay.
I do not have a key yet, so click new.
Yes, please. Click create new, and then you can give it any name you want. Just give it the name like Word add-in, and you don't need to fill in the rest of that. And then click create. I think the button is called create.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so you'll click new, just type in whatever you want here, click create, and then that code that you see on the next page is what you're going to insert.
Oh, I'm in. Thank you.
Perfect. So that's your like, it's like your little password. And now that you've done that once, it's going to be stored in your account, so you won't need to do it again.
Okay.
And it'll just auto-populate in Word next time. So it's just hard the first time. All right. So what we are doing now is we're going to actually set up your document. So pull up under select workflow. If you ever add more questions to your workflow, you can always push this refresh button to make sure you have the most recent variables. But pull up the workflow you were working on. So for example, I might select the independent contractor agreement here, because that might be the workflow that I was working on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start with some simple variables. So Jawad is already like way past us because he's doing fancy simple variables here already. But simple variables allow you to insert the variable names into your document. And these are basically like mail merge type fields. So this is like the most basic you can get in terms of automation. So let's start by, maybe we want to put the company name here. What I'll do is I'll choose my simple variables, and these variables, these are all variables that I selected. So yours are going to be completely different because you set up different questions than me.
Dorna, can you share your screen again like you were doing before?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen.
No,
Yes, I will do that. That would be very helpful.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay, so here we have our document and we have our Word add-in. What I was saying is you can press this refresh button at any time if you ever add or remove variables, and you'll want to select your workflow. So in this case, I might want to select the independent contractor agreement, and then I can start using my variables. So here in my document, you see that I have this company name here, and I want that to be inserted no matter what the company name that's inserted is. So what I'll do is I'll highlight that, or put my, or if I didn't have anything here, I could just put my cursor there.
Will credit, right, for the run the US.
And then what I can do is choose one of my simple variables. So I'll click the simple variables tab, and then I will choose my variable. So my variables are company name, consultant name, you know, children, equity compensation. Yours are going to be totally different because you are the artist of your own workflow. And so let me select company name. And then there are a few other things you can do. One is format as standard. I would recommend just starting with standard, but sometimes you might want your company name to appear in all caps in certain locations. So in that case, you could use the uppercase function, or the first letter capital is also useful, but that's probably more for if you have a client who you don't think is going to write in their name correctly. So like, let's say it's a consumer and they're putting in John Doe and you think they might spell it lowercase John, you want to force it to be capitalized, you might want to choose that one. Most of the time you'll probably choose standard unless you're doing uppercase. So I'll just choose standard for now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click insert variable, and my cursor, as you can see, is already there in that spot. It's going to, now I just clicked insert variable, and it just replaced what was there before. Maybe I'll make this a little bigger. It just replaced what was there before with this variable company name and the little special formatting there. There are a bunch of other ways that you could format this as well. So for example, you can make this bold, and that you can just use Word's internal functions. So if you wanted this always to appear in bold, just click bold or italic or underline, and the final version of this will be bold, italic, or underline. You can also choose whatever font you want. That whatever the entire thing is selected as is going to be what your final version of your document has. So I'll just undo that for now. And then, you know, as we went over with BYOD, there are some more special things that you can do. So for example, if you wanted to add indefinite articles, or there are other options that may not be here on its face, just let me know if there's anything that you don't see here, because one, I can tell you how to do it really easily with just a simple copy and paste, or two, it's also something that we can potentially add into the Word add-in so that you have what you need easily accessible there. So those are simple variables. Go ahead and take your time to just put some simple variables throughout your document. I might want to put my company name up here as well in the address block, but I might want that to be uppercase. So I'll just put my cursor here and click insert variable. And there is some little bit of syntax here, but it's all going to be understandable to you. Now, the next thing I want to do is set up some logic. So for example, I may have had these different sections inside of my document where there are clauses that may appear or may not appear, or sections of my document that may appear or not appear. There are two different ways you can do this. You have the options of show phrase when, and you have the option of show paragraph when. Show phrase when is any particular section where you don't care about line spacing. Show paragraph when is going to be where you actually care about the line spacing and you want it to collapse. So for example, if I have an entire paragraph, I might want to use the show paragraph when option, because what's going to happen is whatever I use, it's going to allow my document, if that isn't selected, it's going to collapse that, and it's going to remove it completely, including the line spacing. And where that becomes especially useful is if you have a numbered paragraph. So if I have paragraph 1, something, some clause here, paragraph 2, some clause 2 here, some clause 3, or let's just say some other clause here. Other. Sorry about my typing. There we go. So if I just use phrase logic on this, if this is removed, it's going to just have, this is just going to be removed like that, where in my final document, there's going to be a 2 here and a blank space here. But if I use paragraph logic like this, I'll say show paragraph when, you know, maybe when state name is California. Then what's going to happen here is it's going to remove this altogether. And just make sure when you insert a paragraph condition, the paragraph conditions need to be on their own separate lines. So that's how they're inserted in the word add-in, and just leave them the way they are. So if state name is not California, this entire thing is going to be taken away. And it's going to just say 1 and 2 instead of 1, 2, 3 with a blank space on 2. So go ahead and add some of your logic into your document. So for example, I might want to say that I'll show this particular portion if project-based, which is one of my variables, is yes. Or let's go with something easier. Let's go with state name is California. You can add as many conditions here as you want in terms of Boolean logic. So you can say show phrase when state name is California and project basis, yes. So you can add a lot of conditions there, but we'll start with something really basic for today. And then I'll go ahead and click insert condition. And as you can see, we have this variable name here. It says if state name is California, and then it says end if. So think of these conditions that it's inserting into your document as little bookends. So it's the starting bookend, which is the if statement, and the ending bookend, which is the end if statement. So just go ahead and insert those throughout your document wherever you see them fit. And just go through and add. These will be really useful, particularly for any of those sections where we had footnotes, where we're removing or adding different paragraphs. That's going to be valuable for you there. All right. So I'll give you guys a little bit more time to enter those. Or maybe enter some prototypical examples of what you'd be using so that you kind of understand the process. And then just let me know if you have any questions on this in terms of more specifics. I'll go over a few other things that you could potentially add to your document. So we have the show phrase when, we have the show paragraph when, and keep in mind when it says paragraph, it doesn't just mean a paragraph. You can have 7 pages that are part of a paragraph logic that you then collapse. And let me know if you're still working. Otherwise, let's just move on to a few of the different, because I know we don't have too much time left. So let's just move on to a few of the other things that you could be doing. So we've added some paragraph and phrase logic, hopefully so far. A few other things you can do is add numerical calculations. You probably haven't at this point yet added numbers that you're wanting to calculate, but that is possible. So if you had numbers that you collected, you can do those calculations in your document. You can do date calculations. So calculate something based on a date, or add or subtract time from a date. Then finally, we have those repeating items. So I don't know how many of you guys actually inserted repeating items into your workflows and needing them to flow into your documents. But those repeating items, like things like children or shareholders or founders, those things can be inserted into your document in a multitude of different ways. So sometimes you may just want them as a list. Sometimes you might want them as a multi-line list instead of, like, let's say you had 3 children, Jane, Jack, and Jill. Sometimes you might want to write Jane, Jack, Jill. Sometimes you might want to have Jane on one line, Jack on one line, Jill on one line. Sometimes you might want to have them in a table. And the table could be really useful, particularly if you have other variables. So if you're collecting the name, the date of birth, the age, all these different pieces of information about these children, you may want to create a table where you have them all listed in that table as well. And then the two of the really popular ones are commas and Oxford commas. So if you have, let's say, 3 different shareholders, and inside of your document, you want to write something like Jane Doe, who resides in California, John Smith, who resides in Washington, and Jim Smith, who resides in Delaware. Those are things you're going to want that and right before the last item. So the comma or the Oxford comma lists, or even the semicolon lists, are going to be really useful there. So just keep these in mind. If you want to insert them now, you can. And then the final step here is, so let's just go back to our slides here. So what we've done so far is we've added our questions, we've connected them to our documents. So in this case, we only did one document, but if you had multiple documents, obviously you would tag all your different documents, and then you could generate them all at once. And that's going to be really useful, particularly if you have some sort of like document packet that you're giving to people. You'll want to connect all of your different fields there. Then finally, we're on the final step of the process. So there are a few other things that you're going to be able to do with your workflows. You can change up the styles, the fonts. You can add hyperlinks. If you go to, so styles and fonts, those are things that you can change depending on how you want to change them. But if you go to help.documate.org, we have a few out of the box things that you can do. So let's go to the questionnaire field. This actually works a lot like if you guys ever use Slack, especially before they had, a few months ago, they didn't even have the bolding as an option below. So what you can do is you can put in, it's the same type of formatting. So if I wanted to say, this is bold, you just put 2 little asterisks next to it like that. And that will make things bold in the final version. Like that. And then there's a lot of other little options here. So like italic, emphasize it, you make it look a little different. You can put links inside of your workflow. So here's an example of a link. Maybe you want to tell someone to go to this link. You should go to our site here. And then this is the link text, and that's the actual link you want it to go to. So you might want to say something like, click here. And then what that's going to do is that's going to be the link text. That's going to be where it's going to go to. So if I run this, if I click here, it's going to take me to that tab. So there are a lot of little customizations you can do. So I just wanted to go over some of those in brief. Adding bullet points, changing the size of questions, Those are all possible. You can also add help text. So if you wanted to add, go to the advanced settings, there's help text that you can add, which will show up as a little question mark inside of your different document, inside of your different questions. You can also add videos, images, and audio. So that's another thing that you can, it's very easy to add. If you have a video particularly that's already on YouTube, you can even just make it unlisted or private on YouTube so that you don't have to take up, because sometimes if you load the video, it takes a little bit longer to load. But if you're referencing the YouTube page like this, let me go to add videos and files. You can use YouTube or Vimeo. So here's one example. If I have a URL that ends like this, I'll just put the ending of that link that comes after YouTube right at the end there. So if I do something like this, it just says YouTube and the end of my link. Then what's going to happen is in my workflow, I actually have this video that pops up. So a lot of people like to use this to customize and really personalize their workflows, because you can talk to your clients who are going through this, and maybe even it's you on the video, or maybe a little cartoon that guides them through the process. So videos, you can add images, you can add audio only if you prefer that, and then you can customize all those styles. And those are sort of all the very basic steps of getting started. So hopefully these have been really good building blocks for you guys to expand on the documents you worked on today, and to build out more and more documents and more document packets. But one part I forgot to mention is after you set up your documents, you'll load them all here to your output documents, and then you'll just go ahead and run them, and you'll go live with your workflows. So I'll also include the link to the help docs in the chat in case that's helpful, or in case you don't already have them. I think you all should have received an email about this as well, but just in case, I'll just add that to the chat as well. All right. Anyone have any questions? Also, if you guys, yeah, please.
Question for embedding. So I would be using this, let's say, for a client that I already have that's going on my website, and let's say they just select the independent contractor agreement. There are certain things that I want to pre-fill. Can I do that with this?
For a particular client?
Yeah, so let's say I already know their company name. I don't want them to have to type it every time. I want it to pre-fill that.
Yes. So one thing you can do is you can actually start this workflow. So you can say include link. If you use this option, include link for user to continue later, you can give a personalized link to anyone of the specific spot where you started in a workflow. So what that means is I can go through this and I can say, okay, run this, and I'll choose California, and maybe I'll choose like ABC company, John Smith. Let's just go through some of these. Okay. And then now what I want to do is I can click save link to continue later. And I'll just put my own email address in there. And when you send this link to that email address, it's going to be a link of this very specific session. So then what you'll do is, instead of sharing the link to the workflow, which normally starts it from the very beginning, you'll be sharing a link for exactly where you left off. Does that make sense? And if you have any trouble with that as you're playing around with it, just let me know, and I'll help out with that as well. I'll also I'll add two more things in the chat. I'll add my email, and then also we do have support. So if you guys ever want to get on a screen share and just talk one-on-one about something that you're curious about, I'm adding a link to our calendar, and that's going to either be me or my colleague Seth, and we can help you through anything specific as well.
So that brings me to two other questions. One is, how long is that session good for? Whether if it's indefinite or 30 days or 30 minutes for the client?
The session is indefinite.
Okay. And then the second question is, that's not what my original question was for. My original question was for if a client goes to, on my website, I've embedded the form, right? And I already have on through WordPress, I've collected information from the client before. And so what they're looking to start, so for example, if they're they're creating a new independent contractor agreement, I know what the company's name is.
Right.
I
Okay.
want that inserted immediately so that they don't have to type it in every time. It's more of a custom feel for the client. Usually,
That makes
you know,
sense.
in the URL, you just type in and then something, you know, F name for first name, whatever I have the variable set as. I tried that on here and it didn't work. So I thought maybe it'd be better to ask.
I know some people have done that. So let me ask our team about that and maybe just send me the link. If you want to just email me the link that you sent over, that you added in there, and I will ask them how exactly you can pass that information forward as well.
Oh, I haven't added any links yet. I was just looking at in the under embed on your site in the help documents.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, all it says is the source interview URL. So I thought maybe there's, you know, you can enter the additional variables right into that. But when I just typed it into the browser, just like F name because I have that for first name, it didn't work. And so I just wanted to see if there was like already another specific way to do that, or if I just need to, because usually like I just have to hack into something or figure a way out to do it.
Right. I know that people have done that method, so let me just check in with our team on that, and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me just make a note of that as well. All right, perfect. Any other questions? Oh, I wasn't sharing my screen, I don't think, when I showed you that last, but I think you got what I was saying. I don't think I was sharing anymore.
I got it.
All right, perfect. Okay, wonderful. Well, I also put my information into the chat. So Jawad, I will message you about that question you had. And otherwise, you guys can all reach me at my email, and would love to help you out with anything else that you need.
Dorna, thanks for your time. This was informative and interesting. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joshua, for coming.
Thank you.
And thanks so much, Anne-Marie, for organizing and having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And just,